Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1332A, and today's date is July 14th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Central Banker Paper Reveals the Process of Controlling Currency. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, as we move further and further into this summer, it looks like the people are starting to wise up and they're starting to realize that there's something not right in this economy. And right now what we're seeing is the biggest 2-week plunge in Bloomberg's index of the economic comfort in 6 years. And UMich is reporting one of the biggest disappointments in the preliminary print for June. And they were expecting a 95 and it came in at 93.1. This is the weakest since October 2016, before the election. And now after the election, when people are saying that the economy's doing well and everything's fine, the Fed is saying, it looks great to me, the economy's strong, people are starting to wise up and say, everything doesn't look as great as it really is. And we can see right now that hope, it is declining rapidly. And there's good reason for all this, because we've been tracking it. We understand that the numbers that are coming in, and if we look past all the manipulation, we see what is really happening in the economy. Now, we know that the restaurant industry, they are not doing well. And when we look at chain restaurants, they have slumped to the worst they've ever been since 2009. Now, for 6 quarters in a row of year-over-year declines, it is just not improving right now. Foot traffic at chain restaurants fell 3% in June. Same-store sales fell 1%. The 16th month in a row of year-over-year declines, completing the 6th quarter in a row of sales declines. The longest, like I said, since 2009. Now, food sales were also down. Alcohol sales were down. The only thing that was up are prices. Now, remember, the Fed said there's no inflation, so I don't know how these prices are going up if there's no inflation whatsoever. I'm seeing inflation all over the place. Yes, it's being stuffed into many different markets, but we do see it. Now, this is all being reported by the Executive Director of Insights and Knowledge for TDN2K, whose restaurant industry snapshot tracks around 27,000 restaurant units from 155 brands, generating about $67 billion in annual revenue. And what they saw was that sales rose in 45 markets and fell in 150. Now, they report that the summer season should be solid because people have money to spend. But what they're seeing is that this is not happening. There's been no major acceleration in spending at restaurants, and they expected that it would be. The same thing with housing. Housing usually does very, very well in the summer, and we're seeing the opposite happen right now. Now, if we take this and we move it over to autos, automobile sales, they are doing terribly. And there's one indicator that we can look at here that shows us that auto sales are not doing well, because we know that people don't go to the automobile dealer and say, hey, listen, here's $30,000, here's $20,000, here's $60,000, I want that car. What people do is they take out leases, most likely, or they finance. And it looks like it's more and more leases because that's the cheaper price. And Wells Fargo is now reporting that loan originations, they have crashed by 45% year on year to only about 4.5 billion. This is the lowest since the bank started disclosing the item back in 2013. So we're seeing a downtrend in loan origination, which shows you that people are not buying cars. Remember how it works. The automobile manufacturer produces as many cars as possible, and they stuff them into the lots. The more they stuff, the more they report those as sales. It's not when the individual buys them, it's how much they can stuff into the lots. And what's happening right now, since they stuffed as much as they possibly could, they had to lower the requirements for individuals to buy those automobiles. And now there's no one left. They've hit the subprime, they hit the subprime people, and people just, they're out of funds. They just can't do it. And what we're seeing is that delinquencies, they are on the rise. And this is why it's pushing a lot of individuals right out of the market. And automobile sales, well, they're going to hurt as we move forward here. It's not going to get better. We see core retail sales. They are down -2%. They expected a positive 2%. Now, this is all of retail. It's not like, oh, let's just look at brick and mortar. Let's just look at online. This is all of it. Now, remember how they calculate retail sales. Even though we have stores closing, and let's say there's 50 stores that close right now, they don't say, okay, 50 stores closed, let's just cut that off, they have no sales. No, they take what they have and they calculate it out for the rest of the year. So this way it's a slow decline, even though there's no sales going on. So it's a big trick to make you think that things are a lot better than they really are. But when we look at this, we can see that, again, food services down -0.2%. Motor vehicle, this is down at -0.1%. We see gasoline stations down -1.3%. Clothing stores down -0.1%. Sporting goods, hobbies, music stores down -0.6%. We see general merchandise department stores down -0.7%. Miscellaneous store retailers down -3.1%. And this goes on and on and on. And we can see that the retail market, it's not recovering. It's only going to get worse. And to make matters even worse and to understand how this economy is not working at all, let's look at San Francisco for a second here. Now, people would think today that $138,000 a year would be a very nice income. You can live off that. You can maybe purchase a house. You can raise a family. But in San Francisco, there's a new piece of legislation that was just approved. And what this allows, it allows couples earning up to $138,000 to get subsidized for affordable housing. So if you're making $100,000, $90,000, $130,000, you can get subsidized to purchase a house. This is how bad it has gotten. Who would have ever thought making $130,000 you would be going into affordable housing? Does that make any sense whatsoever? Now you know how the dollar has been devalued. Now you see where inflation is going. Because inflation really means that the value of the dollar decreases. It means you need more dollars to get that same product, that same house. And when it's not enough, the government has to step in to help. And we're getting to the point now where $130,000 or even $135,000, you can get government assistance. This should tell everyone how bad it really is. We see that industrial production growth, it is slowed for the first time since January. Now, month on month, this is what the corporate media is out there reporting, saying that, oh, we had this great rebound. It was up to 0.3%. This is fantastic. But you have to remember, they revised the numbers. They revised May. They brought the numbers back into June. They made it look really great. But when you really look at it year over year, production has slowed. It has dropped. It's falling. It's declining. It's not doing what they say. All they're doing is manipulating the numbers and revising it to make the next month look even better. And then they revise that month to make the next one look better. And then when you go back in time, you look and you say, wow, this looks awful. And then when you go to last year, well, how come it's getting worse if they're telling you how it's getting better? So something is wrong here. And you could tell that things aren't going well because JP Morgan, they were giving a presentation about their earnings, and they left out one important slide. And I think they did this on purpose. And they were out there saying that their earnings and everything looks fantastic. The part that they left out was the credit card charge-offs, because it shows that JP Morgan's net credit card charge-offs surpassed $1 billion as of June 30th. And it's the highest point going back to 2013. Now, as a reminder, remember what Jamie Dimon said, that the U.S. consumer remains healthy. Remember, whenever a politician, a banker, a central banker comes out there and tells you something, it's always the opposite. When they tell you in the bank, listen, don't worry, everything's under control, it's all contained, you will be able to get your funds, so you don't have to worry. That's the point where you run to the bank and you get as much as you possibly can. Actually, probably at that point, it's too late. So what we're looking at here is that their credit card losses, they were at $1.4 billion, an increase of $193 million. And this tells you that something is wrong here. Now, this fits with the bigger picture where the credit card default, it has surged to the most since the financial crisis. Because when we look at the credit card default, and this is S&P Experian Default Index, we see that it has risen by 3.53%, up more than 13% a year ago. So all of this jives together, and it all makes sense. So is the U.S. consumer really that healthy if retail sales are continually declining? Foot traffic spending in restaurants is continually declining. Loan originations in the automobile industry is declining. Really, the U.S. consumer is really healthy when charge-offs are up by $193 million? And that's just one bank. Now, think about this. Now, what is happening here is that the economy is limping along. It's actually dead. It's on the ground here. The central bankers, the banks, they're all trying to keep it, they're trying to keep it going as long as they possibly can, because they want to control the narrative. They want to make sure they have full control of how this comes down. They know it's dead. The problem is the rest of the nation doesn't know. There's a few select. We know. But there's many others that are completely in the dark. People are just living in this world where they think that everything is absolutely fantastic. And what's worrying is they're going to be shocked when the system comes down. I mean, there were plenty of people that were shocked when everything crashed in 2008, when people lost their investments, their pensions, and everything else. This time around, it's going to be a disaster. Now, there was a paper that was out there. This was during the Jackson Hole, and they were talking about negative interest rates. And there was a paper that was written, and basically it talks about how to abolish the paper currency. And you would think that they would be like, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to say it's because of, drug trafficking. And this is what they've been using. But when you look at the paper and you see an excerpt of this and how to kill cash, because this was what the talk was about. It wasn't about negative interest rates. It was about how to control the currency and how to control the people who are using the currency. And here's some parts of what they were talking about. The most straightforward way to unencumber interest rate policy completely at the zero bound is to abolish paper currency. Now, they thought of different ways to do this. Now, of course, they're saying that, it's being used for drug trafficking, for laundering money, and this is why we have to remove it. And they tried to use this in other countries around the world, and it has worked. But the other way is to get people very comfortable in using mobile devices, get people very comfortable in using their credit card or debit card. And the other way is to raise the ATM charges so people don't go and use the ATM machines. Because they say if they can continually raise these charges, people will take out less and less cash because they don't want to be charged for it. So they were thinking, listen, if we put a charge on the withdrawal of cash, even if it's your bank, people would stop taking out cash, and it would look natural, like, oh, this is just part of the thing. They increase my fees, now I'm being charged for cash. I might as well use my credit card, my debit, my mobile phone. And they wanted to get people used to this, and then all of a sudden start taking away some of the bills, get rid of the 100, get rid of this. And eventually what would happen is you would be left with no cash whatsoever, and everything would be electronic. Now they're doing this because they understand when this system comes down and going forward, they want complete control of the currency. And how else do you have complete control of the currency? Well, it's when you control the currency electronically. And I'm not talking about the blockchain. Even if I am talking about the blockchain, I'm talking about the controlled blockchain by the central bank, because they are looking at this, but when they control it, this is not a decentralized blockchain system. So they're looking to control everyone. And what this enables them to do, well, they can just shut things down whenever they want. Now they can still shut it down, but you still have the ability to have cash. See, this is the difference. You can go to one of these places, you can take a check, and they will give you cash. Well, think about it. When cash is gone, it goes into an electronic account. And then they have full control. They also have the ability to know exactly what you're doing. They know exactly where all your funds are. So there's no way of getting out of paying any type of taxes or trying to do anything to show that you didn't make any money to pay taxes. They want full control to make sure they know exactly what you're doing. And they had a meeting about this. They're pushing this forward, and they already had test cases around the world. And this is all being prepped for when the system comes down and the whole reset is done. And we can see once the reset is done, we might not even see paper currency anymore. Because if the central bank has their way, everything will be digital. They will have full control, and this is exactly what they want. But we as a people, we have to push our government. We have to push to say, listen, we don't need the central bank. We don't need what they are pushing on us. We don't want it. And at this point, when the system comes down, this is what we're going to have to do. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.